this is our inaugural session. Session one, creating and implementing an effective professional development plan. And, we've been talking to you as you popped on, but would you just take a minute and introduce yourself and maybe tell us how long you've been back? I know that we all have varying start dates and what your role is in your district. So, who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Lindsay Leonard. I'm from Pilot Grove Elementary, and I have been back since July 28th. And all was going well until the teachers started trickling in, and I realized, there is so much more to do. I thought I was really good last week, and now I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, but all will come together.
Understand that. Thank you.
I can go.
Okay.
My name is Sarah Strobel. I am the elementary principal at Cohort 5 schools in Eugene. And I am in charge of, I guess, anywhere from, we have an early childhood center, starts at birth, and then I go all the way to fourth grade. I have an 11-month contract, but I don't know that I ever stopped working. And when I started working again, it kind of all just blends together. But I am fortunate enough that I live super close to school, so I can kind of go back and forth. But this is a start of year 19 for me in education. So that'll make me feel old, and hence like the gray hair. It's fine. But I do have to, every time I get the chance, I have to give a shout out to Lindsay Leonard, who is awesome and amazing, because she's the one that brought me to Step Up and made me part of the Step Up super fan club. We have our own fan club. And yeah, we we always say we're the super fans of Step Up. So shout out to Lindsay. She's awesome and amazing.
We love that.
All right. Well, I'm Andrea Curtis. I'm from Cold Camp, and this is my 4th year here, but my 21st year in education. So kind of same as Sarah. I have an 11-month contract, but I've been in pretty much most of the time. Now, not every day, but at least a few days a week, kind of getting in and working and everything. And I thought I had plenty of time, and yeah, it's just coming around that you do not. And it's going, we've had a lot of construction. I've moved, you can see it's kind of just looking crazy and don't have anything set up. And so it's, yeah, crunch time, and I'm feeling it.
Well, I am Andy McNeely. This will start year 24 for me, year 13 or 14, I can't remember, as a middle school principal. So I'm the middle school principal at Lathrop, grades 6 through 8, and we have about 240 kids. This will be my second year with Step Up. Dr. Willard, he came from Walnut Grove, and he kind of introduced us to this. So previously I was BYOC. So it's been a little bit of a change for me because I was kind of the expert of BYOC, but I really look forward to learning from everybody in the group.
I'll go. I popped on late. I guess we're telling about ourselves and our summer. So Brett Briscoe, superintendent of schools at Wellington Napoleon. We're just outside of Kansas City a little bit. I'm on a 12-month contract, and we passed a bond. So we've been doing construction all summer. So it's been very busy. We are pretty much on schedule, but a little bit behind. So we are in crunch time for sure. Because of all that, I feel very underprepared on a lot of the regular back to school stuff that we normally would be kind of focusing on. So anyway, 20th year in education, 4th year as superintendent, done everything from teacher, coach, AD, assistant principal, 4th year as superintendent here. So.
Thank you. Is that everybody? I think it is. Yes. Yes. Well, I'm Sue Herrera. Most of you know me, but I am a retired principal, 38th year in education. I am working at Step Up, obviously. I'm the Director of Instructional Development, and I get the joy of being in your schools, most of you. And today I was in a school and I was reminded how much I miss it. It's great. This time of year is great when everything's sparkling and the teachers are coming in and they don't look too tired and everyone's still pretty excited. And so this is a great time of year. Shauna, everyone knows you, but do you want to just say hello, maybe?
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm dealing with kid drama in the background, which is why I need all of you to take my kids back in school. But no, grateful to be here. And I'm honored that Sue is here to do this call because we hope that we'll give you some great ideas to start your year off right. And Sue is a phenomenal principal. So you take it away.
Oh, well, thank you. The goal of this, Shauna had a vision for what she wanted for Missouri leaders. She wanted a space where people could come together and they could get some real-time solutions, some, strategies and tools that we have found to be helpful that we want to share. But we also want to leave a space for the expertise in the room, which we clearly heard in your introduction. There is lots of talent and depth of knowledge here. We also just want it to be a safe space to ask questions and to brainstorm with one another. And so that's our hope. We will have artifacts for you every single time we meet. And at the end of this call, we'll share a folder with you that houses a whole bunch of information about PD plans. And so with that, I'm going to let Shauna share this slide because this is a quote she believes in quite a bit.
Yeah, thanks. Well, so because you guys all want to be read too, but I am. But I love this quote, and I think it's just key for instructional leaders. It says, ultimately, there are two kinds of schools, learning enriched and learning impoverished. I've yet to see a school where the learning curves of the adults were steep upward and those of the students were not. Teachers and students should go hand in hand as learners, or they don't go at all. And that kind of sets the stage of why we have you here, that it's always been part of my vision when I started this company and why we started the Missouri Instructional Leadership Network. If we need school to be a place of learning, then as the leaders, we have to be lead learners. And growing our people. And I think so oftentimes, I know I felt as a principal, I wanted to do instructional leadership and I was thrust into a lot of management. That's not as fun. You're building buildings and you're doing construction. But if we really want to grow and enrich our kids, I knew we had to give you systems, we had to give clarity. And these types of calls are really, how do we pour into you and create a collaborative network? As a principal, I felt very isolated. And I only had one person in my district to call, who of course did things like I did because we were friends. So the purpose of this is to try to do a virtual thing where we can impart things on you, but help you get better so we can rejuvenate you and give you ideas to lead your staff.
Well, and Shauna knows, she and I were instructional coaches together, and she knows how much I love instruction and I like coaching people. But I will tell you, my last 7 years as a principal, I didn't do any of that. I was in culture and climate. And I told Shauna my first year after Step Up that I had learned more in my year with Step Up than I had the previous 7 years because there was so much work with culture, climate, with teacher hiring, with construction, with management that's why this space is super important to me today. And I'm glad Shauna is giving us this space. And I hope you invite more people to come. So the goal today is professional development plans. And we're just going to talk about, we all know, we all have professional development plans that we either have due, we have a deadline for it at central office, or we know that we need a professional development plan. And I know we have them because that's why you ask us to come in and you give us dates and you say that's what you need to have happen. And isn't it true that in the 4-day school week, we are seeing everyone wants the same day, right? Yeah. But in the leader learning, when you look at the growth of a leader, one of the goals is to develop processes for the continuous improvement of all teachers' instructional practices. And so we're going to be talking about how can a professional development plan not only grow your teachers, but grow your school/district. And ultimately, we want to grow students, right? That is the goal. I was sitting with the principal today who was pulling up their, I have someone saying she's waiting to get in.
Okay,
It's Amber K. Can you kind of reach out to her and make sure she's got the right invite? I'm sorry. I was sitting with a principal today that was on DRC pulling up their data, right? Because that's what we want to see. Did all the things that we taught teachers and all of the things that we do throughout last school year affect student growth? Because that's what we want. And our hope at Step Up is that you can say a resounding yes. So we've created a collaboration space, which is really just a fancy word for a Google Doc, but it can be magical. A Google Doc can move mountains. Okay. So in just a moment, I've got Shauna doing double work here. She's trying to help Amber Kay and she's going to drop a link in the chat here in just a moment. But I have the link in the chat is going to open up to a Google Doc where each of you has your own line to put some answers to the following questions. So let me just share the questions. The first question is, when or what opportunities do you have to provide professional development for your teachers, right? And then the next question is, what are ways to streamline your efforts? How do you connect the dots between teacher growth and building PD? Trying to balance that need to have not only teachers grow individually and be it differentiated, but also you're moving your building or your district forward. You're trying to keep building the skill set. So one's a time issue and one is a connect the dots issues. And then the last question kind of sets us up for the September session, which is how can you go about monitoring all of that? That's a lot of moving parts when you're trying to deal with individual teacher growth, opportunities to deliver the professional development, and then individual teacher growth plans. Shauna did drop into the chat, so if you'll click on it. Oh, look, people are already typing. Gosh, you guys are like advanced. Yeah, let's go ahead and pick a line and let's start answering some of these questions. I'll be quiet so you can do that. And Amber, welcome. Sorry it was difficult getting in. Shauna, we might need to drop that link one more time if Amber got in afterwards.
On it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So when you get done typing, I want you to make sure you go and take a moment and read everyone's responses. And so as we're finishing up typing, we went all the way to the second sheet. Make sure that we are scrolling down to see all of the Good comments here. I'm noticing then when it says, when do you have opportunities for professional development? Because that does vary, doesn't it? From school district to school district. We've got everything from our Mondays in our 4-day schools to bi-weekly data team meetings, and I saw some data meetings in here. That seems to be pretty consistent. Shauna and I both said staff meetings. Sarah Strobel said weekly staff meetings. I love this weekly curriculum check. Sarah, can you tell us about the weekly curriculum checks?
Yeah, so we decided to use the online platform of plainbook.com, and our teachers have to, for their core subjects, and they end up doing every subject anyways, they go in and have their learning objectives. So basically, they have their curriculum management tool up on one screen, and they have their plain book up on the other, and they just like copy and paste, like there's their I can statements. So that way we have like a double check of every standard that they're teaching to make sure we've got it on our pacing guide, our management tool. And then we also have it in our plan book. And then I check them. They have to have them done on Friday for the next week before they leave. And so they I go in and check, and that way when I walk into their classroom, I then have their curriculum management tool up and I have their plain book up, and then I can know that either they're on track or we can have a conversation about like, hey, tell me a little bit more about why are 2 standards behind as opposed to what it says on our pacing guide or on our on your plain book. And so it's just been an easier way for me to keep track of teachers and making sure that they're completing their curriculum, and we're getting to those priority standards. So
Great, thank you for sharing. Brad, could you share observational feedback 864? I'm not sure I know what that means. We can't hear you, Brad.
It would help if I'm off mute. So we're an NEE school, and
Okay.
so we've kind of set up just as our benchmarks for our observations for our principals. As if you're like a first year teacher, we want to try to at least be in there once a month, so 8 per year. If
Okay.
you're a non-tenured teacher, 6 per year. If you're a tenured teacher, 4. Of course, those are the minimum like formal observations. We try to be in classrooms as much as possible, but just trying to set up some benchmarks there. So we're providing regular feedback. And of course, we want those face-to-face meetings after those opportunities to talk about growth opportunities and what they're doing great as well. So
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. The district I just left, we had processes. So if you're a process A, you were a new teacher or new to the district, so it was similar. Yes. Anyone else write an opportunity for professional development that might be out of the norm that you can share with us so we can begin to think out of box? Shauna, you have monthly feedback meetings. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So, the time I came into a district as a new principal, and then they told me, hey, 20 hours a week, you need to be in a classroom and you need to document it. Great. So I made it happen. But what I found myself is, how am I going to give feedback to all these people? Because if I'm going to be in your room, I want to be able to tell you something about it. And then that was impossible for me. So, I mean, to email every individual one. So I came up with this idea of, I think sometimes as a leader, people don't have access to me. If you weren't doing a good job, you had a lot of access to me. But sometimes my high flyers never did. And so I developed this system where now it's a time suck, I will tell you, but it was one of the best things I did. 2 Mondays a month, I would block off the whole Monday. And I made this schedule during their plan time where I would see twice a month, you had 20 minutes with me. So I could debrief what I saw in your classroom. So and where are you at with your growth? Like, here's what I'm seeing. Where are you at? But then it also gave everybody access to me that normally wouldn't talk to me. And I found it very transformative and a real culture boost because now everyone felt connected and close, and I could get my finger on the pulse of things that were happening that I normally didn't do. And I think it helped me keep really good people. And then it was that continuous coaching. But while it took the whole day, that structure in the end saved me a lot of time from trying to schedule meetings here and there with everybody. It was just like anytime I had something to talk about, I had a clipboard, their schedule, and I would just jot notes of like, what do I need to talk to them about that day?
That's good. You reminded me, I used to do something called 15-minute Fridays where I didn't do it all the time, but I tried to get 15-minute quick meetings with every staff member to give them feedback about something I saw in their classroom that was positive and then offer, a suggestion. Anyone else want to share one of their opportunities that we may not have discussed yet? When we get into streamlining the efforts, we're seeing lots of great examples of how do you connect these dots for teachers. Andy, you've got Google Doc tied with Step Up to Cross Off Standards Mastered. Tell us about that.
So we used to be an NEE school, and
Mhm.
now we transformed to this new version called trust-based teacher observation. Some guy from the state of Washington, which basically is a 20-minute observation. NEE was like 7 to 10 minutes, I think. And then, so this trust base is 20-minute observation, and you just write down everything you see. And there's a pyramid, it's like 8 pages, and it's really simple to use. And then the following day, you have a script of feedback that you have to follow. And then you do that like 4 times. So I do that with, similar to what Brad said, our new teachers we go bi-weekly with. And then what I found was that was the first year, was last year. What I found was I couldn't track what I was doing with the step up curriculum and the what we call TBO for trust-based observation. So we basically made a copy of all the step ups, and then we put another a form in there, and then we basically just have our teachers mark off whenever they see the standard is mastered or progressing. And then I'll go in with my new teachers and I will mark off what I see on the mastery side of it. And then that gives us some conversation pieces, but it's got to be the very next day. So I found it to be very effective. It's a time suck, but it's very effective. I specifically did it with math last year, and our math scores, and I'm super excited about this, went up 35% across the board, 6, 7, and 8. So this year I'm going to do it with ELA, and hopefully that the math will continue to trend. But
You want that pattern.
trying to find a way to do both by myself has been will be difficult, but I just wanted to do one thing and try to do good at it. So that's how we did it that way. We just streamlined it with another, basically a cell in step up.
Well, congratulations on that growth. I mean, it's great when you see that your efforts are paying off. And I have found that teachers love feedback. They want you to sit with them and tell them what you saw. They want to be validated for their thinking. And believe it or not, they do want suggestions. Most teachers really want to improve. And so that's amazing. I think that's great. I saw one on here I wanted to ask about. Lindsay, you made a comment on this last column where you said one of the ways that you're going to monitor is to see teachers as leaders. Can you tell us
Yeah,
about
so
that?
that's something new I'm implementing this year, but I'm very, very excited. I did a survey at the end of the year last year, and it was kind of a new question, and I was curious about like how my teachers would respond. But the question was something to the point of like, what area do you see yourself as a leader that you could teach the other team members? And I was so blown away. I have actually, I'm going to find it, several areas that my teachers chose leaders. So PBIS, we have a leader there. decoding, academic, phonemic awareness, Wilson reading, literacy, writing, interventions on academics and behavior, motor lab, accommodations based on specific student needs, incorporating other subjects, art into social emotional wellness, building positive relationships with kids, and then math building with confidence. And I thought that was like something cool that the teachers picked what they felt confident in. So what I'm going to do is share with my team, like, hey, if you have a question with motor lab, you see this teacher and she's going to be the teacher leader. So then I'll just do check-ins with them. But I feel like learning from our own will be amazing. Or if questions come up, you know, in conversations with teachers, I could say, hey, why don't you go observe them? Because that was something else my teachers asked for. I also asked them in that survey, who would you like to observe? And I was blown away by their responses because what I thought they would choose was not what they chose. So I thought like giving them the choice was really interesting, and it was pretty cool.
Thank you for sharing. We could stop the call right now because this has been fabulous, everything that you've shared. I am going to go back to the slideshow because we do have a few things that we would like to be able to share with you that Sean and I have found to be helpful over time. And Sean, I'll let you take this slide if you want to.
Yes. Well, I put this in because I just like a good visual. And as we're getting ready to transition into, I think we're talking about two things, professional development plans that you have to turn into people like Dr. Briscoe that aren't always pretty. And then I always had the working PD plan that looked pretty for me and made sense. But either way, I thought this was a good visual when I thought about my plan of it's going back to Rick DeFore stuff, right? Like, what is that vision of what I really want it to look like, sound like? And of course, I'm instructional, so I always think instructionally and thinking about, well, what are the gaps that I have? So what kinds of activities do I need to provide for my people? Guys, this is simple, but I think always starting with the clear vision, the barriers of what you're doing. How am I going to provide PD activities around it? What's the action plan? And then our favorite, but least favorite as leaders is the accountability piece. So Andy, to me, what you said, like you and I had a commonality. It was a time suck, but it was effective. Sadly, though, when you give feedback, when you do those things, what gets held accountable gets what? Done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we have to realize as leaders is we can't hold everyone accountable to all things. It's like raising 5 children, people. I pick my battles, right? What things am I really going to be loose, tight? We've all heard that too. Anyway, I thought this was a good model as just to frame your thinking around a plan. You got to have that clear vision. And then how am I going to hold them accountable? So Sarah, I'm secretly loving the micromanager you are of the goal book because you're holding them accountable to that CMT. And sometimes we build things or we buy things for teachers. We can't hold them accountable to everything, but you got to hold them accountable to some instructional things. So
We
Thank
focused a
you.
lot on what we called purposeful planning because that was something that I saw when I came in was that we weren't purposefully planning our lessons. They were teaching great things, but unfortunately only have these babies for a short amount of time, and we've got to cram as much as we can into their brains in that short amount of time. So I had to find a way to hold them accountable once again for that purposeful planning.
yeah, it's a great example.
So before I show you this next slide, I just want to give you like, a precursor. It looks crazy when I show it to you because it's very colorful. And I'm a color coder. Like I have to see it. I have to see the color before I can read it. And the reason I made it is because I needed to see when were my opportunities to deliver PD. Even if I didn't deliver it, when were those chunks of time? And if I had 3 to 4 PD goals, how was I going to do that spiral delivery of PD, right? And so I warned you. But so what I did, I just gave you August to December. This was a real working plan of mine. I did change one of them, but we were trying to get classrooms conducive to learning because our setup of our classrooms was not what it needed to be. I didn't have a gathering carpet, which this is very elementary. I didn't have spaces for anchor charts. I didn't have a space for a teacher to pull a small group. And so we were really studying that, trying to figure that out. And then academic language, which is part of the knee, and also the DESE growth guides. You know, yes, teachers were using the language, but that wasn't the hallmark for growth. The hallmark for growth on that goal is that students are using the academic language. And then we were also working on engagement. I mean, really, who's not working on engagement? I think every principal is working on, not only getting the kids engaged, but, in Marzano's new book, he's talking about, do we notice they're not engaged? Right? And are we willing to do something as an instructor? Are we willing to adjust? So that's what we're working on. And then pacing, which goes along with engagement strategies. But I was also talking not only the clip of the beat of the instruction, but also that viable pacing in the CMT. So my times to deliver PD were plan time PD, so the common plan time twice a week. The staff meeting or building leadership team, and not the whole staff meeting. That really was the staff meeting. But the first 10 to 15 minutes, we could carve out time for teacher leaders to share some things or for us to discuss some PD. And then always the district PD days, obviously. And then I use digital learning. Like I would flip videos to them. I would find videos and I would say, let's look at this classroom setup and answer these questions. Or like our micro PDs through Step Up. Do we have some bursts of digital PD that we can share? And I was known to make a video every once in a while myself. I'm just going to say. And then obviously we all said it, the accountability, the observation and feedback, that's the greatest growth. And so you can see how I was splitting things and then spiraling it. And then look what I did in October. We're not going to do anything except that CMT and pacing at every opportunity. Because why? Why did I wait till October? Because that's the end of first quarter and you get all your really good data then. You've got your iReady data, you've got your baseline writing, your classroom's all set up, your class lists are pretty solidified if you're in a transient area where kids are moving in and out. And we know what we know at this point. So now we can really shore up our viable pacing. And then you can see down here, I'm going to observe for all of the things in December. So I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I just want to show you the way my brain works because I have to figure out when am we delivering what. I didn't even put the layer in where I said who's delivering it. That would be a whole other layer, right? Does this make sense? Yes.
Yeah. Did you share it with your teachers or was this just your guide?
I shared it with my leadership team. Matter of fact, we did a lot of this together because obviously this isn't all me. My instructional coach, bringing in consultants. Sometimes if there were things on here on SEL, it would be my counselor or my family school liaison. But yes, that's a great question. I didn't think to share this sort of thinking with my entire staff, but there were key teachers that saw this. Yeah. So we are going to share a folder with you and it is going to have all the things in it. And this is a screenshot of, what it looks like. And I have organized it by session and I'm going to click on this first session just to show you there's the slides, there's your collaboration. And then Shauna and I dumped some PD plans in here. And, I'm not going to, and there's that sheet I showed you. I'm not going to say they're outstanding, but they're pretty good examples, get you thinking. And they're color coded to show you how things spiral. And then Shauna, this one's yours that you put in. Can you speak to this one just for a minute?
Sure. Well, it's funny because here we are, Sue and I left ways and we did similar things with our PD plans, which is fun. But I think the key thing I tried to put up here is I always had my 3 to 4 goal. Like I had 3 goals for the building, and then I knew I always had to do what the district said I had to do. And they would usually try to ruin my schedule. So, but I'd always try to think, what are they trying to do? Then I would list what structures, that's what Sue had across the type. What structures do I have where I can actually share with them? And then I was always thinking accountability. So mine is honestly very similar to Sue's. I just set the format up differently. I think it just depends on your brain, but I would list on the side what date and what structure is it. And then I'd show you, sometimes I'd even put specifically what's happening, because how many of you plan I'm lesson planning, everyone. I'm lesson planning, like what's going to happen that day. But what was nice to me with the color coding is I could easily go through and see what am I leaving off? Like I wasn't doing enough of one thing. Because I think the key to this with a good PD plan is what we know with learning, we have to spiral it. And I was truly trying to see with every one of my goals, how am I spiraling it throughout the year and coming back to it? Because does that make sense? I was trying to be very intentional. And you'll notice I bring my BLT onto it. And then that was blank because I'm talking to them about it and getting feedback from them. Like, how do you think this is going? Lindsay, I love your idea of building teacher leaders because I think sometimes you can't be the end all be all. And I think we can take that pressure off of ourselves. And I recently had a podcast with Mike Schmoker, which makes me feel very important. But I was actually talking to him about, well, what do you do when the principal doesn't understand instruction? And his quote was, well, then they shouldn't be a principal. And I'm like, well, okay, then I can give you a list of like 5,000 names. Because sometimes we get into this profession and we're just good managers. But I said, well, what do you do in that? Like, that's just not going to happen. Okay. What do you do in that case? And he said, well, then good leaders find people who can model and demonstrate those things, and they have them up in front of people. Now that's an answer I can take with. And because we're all good on this call, but I can't model all things. And so this idea of even on my PD plan of thinking if these are my goals, and so again, Lindsay, yours is great. Like, who do I have in my building that they could go observe and do those things, and or come model in a staff meeting? I'm going to do a throwback. My third year teaching, I think third or fourth year, Sue actually came into my building, and our principal at the time had her come in and do a read aloud for everybody during a staff meeting. And I remember her doing it, and I was on the edge of my seat, and then I was like crying this is elementary, so secondary people don't judge. But she just did such a fabulous job. And once I saw it for 10 minutes, what was I able to do? I was able to immediately go back and replicate that. People had talked about it. They said, are you doing this? Are you doing that? But when your teachers see, I'm a big observation fan. It doesn't have to always be peer observations. The scheduling can be hard, but during a PD, pull those teachers leaders up and say, I was in their classroom and they nailed this. And I asked them to do a mini lesson for you. One, it elevates those people, but two, I mean, I went back and it transformed how I went. And then later she offered a writing class. Those of you doing her writing stuff, hello. It transformed my writing. Now I was the practitioner who would take it and turn it. But that would be my encouragement to you with those plans of who do I have that can model that beyond me? It doesn't have to always be you.
That's great. Now, I'm not Methuselah. I'm not that old. I actually was her colleague at the time. I was a fellow teacher. She's just forgotten because I was not popular. I was not in the popular group, and Shauna was. So she probably thought I was a consultant, but I really wasn't. I was a teacher. But thank you. Thank you for the nice comments. I appreciate that. So I hope you saw all the PD plans. I think there's 5 total in there that you could look at. So if you are someone that has to turn in a PD plan, just to give you examples, if you don't have to turn in a PD plan, you already have a lot of answers. This is just maybe a different way to spiral it and look at it. Comments before I share just a couple more things with you. Anyone have anything they're thinking about or something that resonated with you that you want to say? Probably tired. All good.
Well, I love Andy's the way he structured his observations. I've been trying to think about how I was going to do that, and I love the idea of how you said they let you know whenever they feel that they have met proficiency. I love that. I think then that's a real good checks and balance format. So I'm stealing that as well.
Great. I told Shauna, I've learned a lot about AI since coming to Step Up, and I've often wondered how my life might have changed as a building principal had I understood or even had AI available to me. So, just playing around last night, I thought, I wonder if AI could make a quality PD plan. So, I want to show you what I discovered. I don't know if any of you use Canva. Do we use Canva from time to time? I hope. Well, there's Canva AI now. And so I just typed in there, create a PD plan for academic language, classroom management, because who doesn't need classroom management? And curriculum implementation, because that is a DESE implementation, because that is one of the DESE growth indicators. Let's see what it says.
Look at
And
Methuselah go.
it's thinking, what'd you say?
Look at Methuselah.
Thank you. Look at me. Old Daisy's using some technology. It's polishing now. And if it does what it did last night, I'm not going to like the first one, but I'm going to tell it to do something, and then it's pretty amazing. Okay, yeah, I don't like it. So I'm going to say refine and be more specific.
Now, Sue, is this turning it into a slideshow or an actual?
It's supposed to be a document.
Okay.
Last night, it made a one-page document that kind of blew me away. It addressed ELLs, it addressed language frames, it gave me how many months it was going to take, how much money it would cost, how much release time I needed. And I was like, excuse me? So, I mean, would I turn this into the central office? Maybe not, but it would give me a place to start, right?
Well, and as you're typing that, I think really the stance that we've really been taking with AI, you followed the whole human in the loop thing, but using it as a collaborator of maybe it's not the finished product, but could it give you some great ideas and a nice template?
Yeah, so here it gives me what I'm going to do for academic language. Here it gives me, and it's saying things like think per share, Socratic seminars. It's giving me classroom management. It's talking about positive behavior supports, clear routines, and then curriculum implementation. Then it gives me next steps. Now, would it be perfect? No, but it's a place to start, especially for a newer principal. And then could I take my PD plan and put it in there? Of course you could. And say, refine this or give suggestions. So I'm just sharing it with you to say, I don't know any educator that's not slightly overwhelmed. So using AI, whether it's Canva or Claude or ChatGPT, can be a tool that I did not have as a principal. So just something to think about. We are at the end of our call. And our next session is going to be September 9th. And I'm going to try to expand upon this idea of, we talked about the overview of PD, but how do you focus on individual teachers? How do you help teachers grow and manage all the different growth plans while still moving your building as a whole forward? So aligning your efforts to facilitate, monitor, and provide feedback for growth that's going to make a difference. And so that's what September session is. But before we leave, I would love to hear one thing that you took away from this today, maybe something that sparked an idea. And you can put it in the chat. You don't have to unmute and talk, but if we could just hear something that resonated with you or sparked an idea, we would greatly appreciate it.
I appreciate the examples of the PD plans. I like the color coding option. I think, we all have goals for our PD sessions and we map that out, but kind of going through with that check and balance system to say, hey, I'm hitting this, I'm coming back and I'm spiraling in later in the year. Because I think a lot of times we get started on PD initiatives and then it kind of just fades and goes away, So I think that follow through piece is critical. So thanks for sharing those.
Yeah.
I also love this. Oh. Hold on.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
2 embers.
Okay, so I had to turn my phone on because I can't get my speakers on my computer to work because it's the first day I've tried to Zoom back in my office. So here we are. So I love the spiraling, but I also loved the teacher leader part because I have teachers that always volunteer to be leaders and things, and they're great. But I know there's other leaders out there that have great things. And so, like, showing that everybody can be a leader and not just those specific teachers. I loved that idea.
I also loved Sarah's quote, purposeful planning. I feel like that goes with clarity and understanding what you're supposed to be teaching. And I love how she said it's not just, teaching this and teaching that, it's purposeful. And so they're still planning and they still get to do all the fun stuff, but make it purposeful. So I'm stealing that line when we talk next week. Oh.
All right.
I've been researching this vector online platform that Sarah used, so I think I'm gonna try that out here next week, see if I can't master some of that. So I appreciate that. Just because I need another tool to help me manage this.
I like the idea of doing the monthly feedback meetings, just like I feel like a lot of times I talk with my staff as a team. We have, PLC meetings, staff meetings, and you have the feedback after observations, but kind of keeping track and keeping notes. I try to, go in classrooms multiple times, and just having that one-on-one time, I feel like would be very beneficial, where it's not just specific to an observation, but just that one-on-one time. I think that would be good. And good for me and for them. So.
Right. Andy, I liked being reminded that being in classrooms for a longer period of time and really scripting out what you're seeing, and then the next day, immediate feedback for that is going to yield not only teacher growth, but student growth. I mean, you've got the numbers to back it up. That's the action research piece. And I appreciated being reminded of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here's what I noticed out of that real quick. I noticed after the fourth time, I wasn't like filling in this pyramid of things, and people would start to realize it just organically. They would be like, man, I'm not really touching this side of the pyramid. And then that would really start initiating good conversation. And it was more teacher led at that point. So then they felt like they were taking a risk without me having to push that risk. So I felt like that our growth was happening because of those feedback sessions that were intentional, and it was a lot of work, but I'm glad those results paid off in our math department this year. And now we'll see if we can continue that.
It's great. Shauna, any final words?
No, I think mine are just, we need great leaders like you. And so we're just really grateful that you took the time today. We can always bring nuggets, but it's truly the collaboration of everyone that makes it happen. So thanks for letting my vision come to life and having this great substance meeting. And I really appreciate all of you, because I know it's go time for you, but we're just grateful for the work you do with teachers and kids.
Right. In September, I'm excited about some of the practical things we can share with you, and interested to build on that last column on our collaboration sheet. I hope that we get to see you again and spread the word. If there's other people that want to jump on, we're happy to have more people. I know we had quite a few people signed up for today, but you know how it is the first week of August. So thank you for making the space in your day to join us. We appreciate it.